Hello everyone and welcome to Werven's World and welcome to my preview of Endless Legend Tempest. I just got this review code in the mail and I needed to disclose that this is still in closed beta, so everything that I will show you might still change. However, the main mechanics are probably in place, so I will basically go through the new mechanics of this game, the new race and how it all comes together. So let's get started. The new race in this expansion is called the Morgor, at least that's what I call them. I'm not sure if I pronounce it correctly. But basically these are constructed creatures that broke out of their prisons deep beneath the ocean and now they're out for revenge. They've got a lot of cool abilities which I will go into in a bit, and they've got a couple of units. They've got the Settler, they've got the Mastermind, and then they've actually got two naval units, the Vor and the Leviathan. So let's see how they look in the game itself. Morgor are really made for water, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, they start with a shipyard, and the shipyard allows you to travel on water, and it allows you to do that from the beginning of the game. Normally, races have to wait until Era 2 until they can research this and unlock it, but you can do it from the beginning of the game. Furthermore, you have Neptunian, which basically means that you get free embarks and disembarks on water. That means that you don't have to circumvent lakes because they cost you a lot of turns, or if you can even cross them in the first place, you can kind of just treat them as normal terrain. Lastly, you have Amphibious, which your creatures get. Here, Amphibious, it's a bit of a trade-off. You're very slow on land. You get -1 movement and -1 battle movement, which you definitely notice. You're much slower than other races. However, it does reduce movement cost on rivers to 0.25. So basically you get 4 times as efficient on rivers. And you can see that here, where this guy is standing on a river and he can traverse all this terrain in one turn. Then all of this terrain in the next turn, and it actually gets a free embark and free disembark there. And then it just keeps following the river, and in 3 turns I've crossed halfway the map. So rivers are really great, especially if you have multiple cities connected by rivers, then you can reinforce each other really quickly if you ever need to. So these guys are definitely made for water. Bonus still applies during winter, which is really nice, because normally during winter you get really inefficient in walking, and these guys especially over land, of course, because they already have a -1. But if they have rivers, they can just still very efficiently cross the terrain, which is really nice. Next to all those abilities that make us quicker on water, there's a couple of extra abilities. First of all, we have Hydrophilic, which gives us extra production and science on terrain with sea or lake, and a little bit less of a bonus on rivers. Then we've got Sea Trader, and that gives us 100% bonus from ocean control on sea trade. Now, ocean control is something I will get into later when we talk about fortresses, but basically instead of now owning provinces on the land, you can also own oceans, and there you can instigate trade and you can get extra bonus for that using sea traders. Furthermore, you cannot research imperial highways, but you can research cargo docks already in Era 2 instead of in Era 3, so that's quite nice. Then we've got Seeds of Dissent, which is a very interesting ability. It's very situational, but you can make pacified villages hostile again. So when an enemy thinks that they've got everything pacified, then you can just make them hostile again and attack the enemies. Then we have the Black Spot, which is quite interesting, where if you go to the diplomacy screen, you can say, I'm going to give you the Black Spot. And the Black Spot basically means that they are marked with a black spot, I assume, and all the other races can attack this race, and whenever they eliminate a unit from this race, they will get some dust bonus. So that basically means that I can single out a certain race, and I can kind of give a very good incentive for other races to actually attack this race. This can be used very offensively as well as defensively. Of course, if one race is really threatening you, you just give them the black spot, and then other races are more inclined to attack that. Now, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I assume that the other race can get rid of the black spot by paying a certain influence cost that might go down over time. Because I think that's at least how it works with the roving clan when they shut you out of the markets. But I haven't been black spotted myself, so I'm not sure about it, but I assume that the other race at least can get rid of it. So then we've got the black spot. Then we've got Breaching Wave, which is also quite a nice ability, but you will soon find out why once we go into the fortresses that are in the oceans. Basically, whenever you take over fortresses, you get an extra bonus, and you get 2 extra influence when you take over a citadel, and +1 bonus on every revealed facility. But you will learn about that later. Then we've got the units that we get, the Leviathan, the Mastermind, and the Vor. Then we've got the main quests. We've got Aquapulvistics, which will give us extra gold or dust, sorry, on terrains with river or sea or lake during summer. And then we've got the shipyard, which we already talked about, which allows us to travel on water already from the start of the game. Last ability I want to talk about is Cat's Paw, which is very situational but also very interesting. It allows you to take control of roaming armies or fleets. Basically what you do is you can click on a roaming army, and then you can click here on this brain with a key, Cat's Paw, which says maintain a mind control on this army in exchange for an increased upkeep. So I actually pay 112 influence to do that, but now if you look at my military upkeep, it's at the moment minus 72.8. If I now click on this, then suddenly it's minus 95.3. So basically I spent 22.5, I think, something like that, on extra upkeep for these 2 guys, even though normally they would only cost me -3, and -3 is -6. So basically I pay 4 times as much upkeep over these guys than I would normally, but now suddenly I have an extra army. The nice part about this is, of course, well, having an extra army that can pick up pearls or can attack enemies and so on, it can be very nice, but also it can save you in a pickle when you're being sieged by these things. So let's say I actually did that here, where I was being attacked by these guys. They were sieging my city, and I didn't have my army close by. So what I did, I just clicked on them, I took them over, and now they're not sieging me anymore. So in that way, Cat's Paw can also be used. Let's talk about the new units in this expansion. Let's first talk about the units of this new race. So we start with the Settler. And the Settler is the same as any other Settler, except it's also got Amphibious, which means that it's slower, but it can actually go really quick over rivers. So that's both a positive and a negative. Then we have the Mastermind, which you actually start with. So you start with a hero and 2 of these guys, and they're quite interesting because they're actually a support unit. So they have range, so they do range attacks. They have true sight, so they act a bit like a radar. Then they're also amphibious, so they run over rivers. And then they have both a buff and a debuff. So you have Bloodlust, which you can target your own units with, and that makes your own units cause more damage, have more initiative and more movement, but they lose a bit of life every turn. Then you've got Slow, which you can affect other enemies with, and then they get less movement. So yeah, they're actually quite interesting because you start with them, so they're not that good at combat, so you have to make up for that somehow. So then we have the 2 other units, which are both actually sea units or naval units. The first of all is the Vor. And the Vor is quite interesting. It has Turtle, so that means that if it's attacked once during a battle, then throughout that entire battle it will have plus 50% defense. So once it's been attacked once, it suddenly gets really tough. So that's quite interesting. It also has rapid mutation, which means you can basically just retrofit it wherever you want. And then at the moment it has acid spray, but that is because it has the weapon that gives it acid spray. If I would give it Jaws, it would actually get Submersible Slayer, which kills submerged animal units. So then we go to actually a submerged unit, which is the Leviathan. As you can see here, this is the Leviathan. And the Leviathan is a submerged unit, but it also has an intimidation aura, which gives less initiative to the adjacent opponents when it's attacking or defending. It has rapid mutation, just as the Vor, and then it kills submersible enemies better. However, that's because it has the Jaws. Again, like I could also give it acid spray. Submersion is quite interesting. You get extra defense when you are submerged, plus you can pass through opponent units. It also ignores sea weather penalties, it can see invisible units, and it becomes invisible when submerged. This is quite interesting, so let's actually go to my Leviathan here. Now it's invisible, it's actually submerged. However, that's because I'm in deep water. If you have it in coastal waters, it cannot be submerged. At least as far as I can understand. I'm not entirely 100% sure about it, but at least when you look at the enemy, look at the unit, it really looks at least that now it's submerged and otherwise it isn't. So I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm still trying to find out how to actually see that. But yeah, that's at least my theory. Then we've got some extra units that have been introduced by this expansion as well, which are the boats. So you can actually research those in the research screen. And you start off with the boarding vessel. The boarding vessel is quite interesting because it has boarding party, which means it transforms some of its remaining health into bonus damage. So the more health you have, the more damage you do, which makes sense for a boarding vessel. So that's this one. Then you've got the fire ship, and the fire ship can actually set your enemies ablaze, and then for 3 turns in a row they actually get damage. So it's basically like a poison effect or a burn effect that ticks through damage over time. Then we have this guy here, our artillery ship. This one can actually do artillery on other cities. So for example here, this city, I could be here and then do artillery, and then it would actually lose a lot of fortification. So it can help you in a siege as long as the city is a coastal city. Then the last one is actually here. You don't really see it. It's hovering there. It's the bathysphere, and that is basically the submarine, the neutral submarine. So of course, as the special race, you have this guy here, the Leviathan, but if you're not playing these guys, you will have to do with the bathysphere. So we can actually put it here, and then you can see what it looks like. Here we go. So these are the extra units that come in this expansion. They're all very interesting. They're all, of course, naval based, but some of them allow you to interact with land as well. Let's talk about fortresses, which is another major addition of this expansion. Fortresses you will find in the ocean, and they're headed by a race called Fomorians. You can interact with these just like you could do with a minor faction by just clicking here on your unit and right-clicking on the fortress. You can either parley with them or attack them. You can conquer it by attacking it. Unlike minor factions where if you attack it, it actually gets destroyed and you have to rebuild it, you actually just get the fortress. If you parley, then you will get a quest, and if you successfully do the quest, then you get the fortress. And if you do that, it will look like this, where if I click on it, I have my own little piece of land within this vast ocean. And because I control this, I actually get some bonuses. As you can see, this fortress consists of a couple of facilities, 4 to be precise, and if I click on it, you can see the bonuses I get. I get 2 dust and 1 influence from this one, and 1 dust and 1 influence from this one. However, that's not where it ends. If I hover over here, for example, you can see that it's a gold facility, so I also actually get +1 gold from this facility, which you can also see here. You can see +1 gold from the fortress. This one I own as well, and this one actually has a glass steel facility, which gives me some science as well as glass steel. So they do give you some resources as well as bonuses already when you have them. However, as you can see, some facilities are not opened yet, or not revealed yet, as they call it. And that's because of the technological era. So whenever the technological era goes forward, doesn't matter which race does it, it doesn't have to be me, as long as some race goes to the next era, then more of these things will be revealed. So let's go to the next turn. As you can see, we have now gotten into a new era because of another race. So because of that, new facility types have been revealed, Palladian facility, Grass Silk facility, and so on, and we actually discovered some of those. So now when we see this fortress, you can actually see that this one has a Quicksilver facility, which gives me 1 Quicksilver as well as 2 dust and an influence. And then we've got this Adamantium facility, which gives me 2 science and 1 influence as well as Adamantium. So that's really nice. And this one here got some Grass Silk as well. So whenever the technological era advances, then more of these facilities might open. But that's not all there is to fortresses. There can be many fortresses in an ocean. As you can see here, I control 2 of them, but there is another one here. You can also see that on your Empire screen, where you can see Ocean, that I control the Bastion East, the Manufactorium, but I don't have Listening Post West yet. And here you can actually see which facilities it has at the moment. So it is currently not mine, so I can actually attack it. And I will just auto-resolve this for now. And I won. And now it's mine. So that's great, because now that I have all 3 of these fortresses, the entire region belongs to me. The entire ocean is mine. So that is good for example, retrofitting and all that. All the stuff that you can do within your borders, you can now do in this ocean. Furthermore, it also increases the resources generated by facilities, but also increases the dust and science incomes from trade routes that cross this ocean, as well as increasing the vision range of these fortresses. So by basically having access to all these 3 fortresses, I gain a lot of land, I gain extra resources. For example, here you can see that now I gain 1.5 gold instead of 1 gold per turn from this facility. And it also increases my income from trade routes and all that. So these fortresses are definitely very good to have, and they do give you a lot of resources as well as control over an area. Let's talk about weather. As you can see here on the map, there is a lot of weather going on, and all these tiles have different effects. For example, here there is fog, and fog in the world, basically it says fleet can see without being seen, which is quite nice. And in battle, actually, if you're in the fog, you get defense against range attacks, which is also really great. Then we've got here lightning, which actually at the end of the turn you lose almost half of your life, which is a lot. And during battle you lose 15% for each turn that you spend in that hex. Then we've got here seaweed, which increases movement cost and also increases movement cost during battle and reduces your defense. What do we have more? We've got some turbulence here, which reduces your movement cost. So there's all these weather effects, and they're dynamic, which is pretty cool. So let's end our turn. And as you can see, now the weather changed. So let's do this again. So now you can see here, for example, this fog is kind of drifting that way. So this weather system is dynamic. So that means that sometimes it's really terrible weather where it wasn't before. So definitely look out for that, especially with automated movement. If you just say like, I want to go this way, then it plans the route, but it doesn't really look for where the dangerous weather is. So be careful for that. But it's a really cool addition. It also looks really cool, I think, especially the lightning is quite very well done. So that's another new addition to this expansion. The last addition to the expansion is a big monster that sometimes pops up in a certain region, and then you can try to kill it for very good rewards, but it's actually very, very strong. In that sense, it reminds me of some of those quests from the Guardians, where suddenly a Guardian pops up and you can try to attack and kill it, but it's actually really strong. So you need a very decent fleet in order to actually overpower this and reap the rewards. So this was my short overview of the Tempest expansion. Just where Shadows really improved on the espionage part of the game and Shifters made the winters much more interesting, Tempest really improves on the naval aspect. First of all, well, before this expansion there wasn't really anything to do with the naval aspect because, well, you could only really transport units from one side to the other side of the ocean, and that was basically it. Now you can make an entire fleet, you can vie for control of the oceans using these fortresses, you can try to hunt down this really big monster, you have a new race that really takes advantage of all this naval part, so it's definitely a very interesting expansion. Of course, that comes with the fact that the expansion also gives you much more stuff to think about, so if you think Endless Legend is already a bit overwhelming in all the stuff that you have to take care of, then well, this will increase that even more, so that depends on if you like that or not. I definitely really enjoy this expansion. I enjoy Endless Legend. It's definitely my favorite 4X game on the market. It's really atmospheric and there's a lot of cool decisions to be made. So if you really like Endless Legend, definitely pick this up. So I hope you found this useful and see you next time.